Scrappers, by becoming a Patreon supporter, not only will you receive market news that other scrappers don't get, you will give us the ability to make more videos, more podcasts, and show you more ways to make more money with your scrap by becoming a Patreon supporter today. Hey Scrappers, it's Tom from the iScrap app, and in this episode of Scrapulator, we're going to talk about EV charging stations and cell phone towers, how they can affect you, how you can get scrap off of them, and of course, how you can learn to make more money with them. Now, if you're looking to learn about other things, you can always follow our podcast, Scrapulator, through our Apple Store, or our Apple account, or our Spotify podcast account. This way you know when new podcasts are coming out from us. Now, here we are in 2021, we have the EV market talking about a major push. We have cell phones and smartphones really becoming part of everyday life. Sometimes people leave their keys on the counter before they leave their cell phones on the counter, and you might be smiling right now because it's happened to you, because it has certainly happened to me before. So we want to talk about where the scrap comes from and what you can think about moving forward in the next few years, and of course how you can learn how to make more money with your scrap. So let's talk about the EV charging stations. Here we are in 2021, and only like 2% of new vehicles sold today are full on electric, not hybrid, just full on electric. So the EV charging station market is really in its very infantile stage. You can drive up and down on major highways and you might be able to see some of those Tesla charging stations. And around here in the tri-state area, we're starting to see some smaller charging stations pop up where they're trying to push them for free so you can stop and charge. And while some people love the concept of going green, they don't like the concept of sitting and waiting 20 to 30 minutes for their battery to charge so they can get back on the road. Also having to plan where you're going to stop for longer trips in electric vehicles makes it a little tougher. So these are just a bunch of things that are kind of going on. But when we look at the scrap from them and what's going to be created, that's where we're really focusing in on. Now, there's going to be a massive infrastructure push. We've just had the Senate pass an infrastructure package. One of the detailed items is EV charging stations. And what does that mean for scrap? Well, that means that there's going to be more copper that's going to be needed. There's going to be more infrastructure, more steel conduits, aluminum conduits, potential aluminum wire instead of copper. There's going to be transformers and inverters and converters and all of these different electrical components that are going to be needed to charge all of these different cars and power these different stations. Now, over the years, if you've ever been through a gas station, you've seen how the gas pumps have changed. Well, the same thing is going to happen to the EV market. They're going to come up with quicker charging stations. And what does that mean? They're going to have to recycle all that material. So as you look around and you start to see companies doing EV installs, whether they're regular electricians or specialty EV companies, you might want to start to hook up with some of these contractors so you can always be right on the spot to pull their scrap out. If they start to change things, which will happen in the next few years, you might be able to loop in with them and be their go-to guy when they're switching charging stations out. They don't have to worry about the scrap and you'll be able to cash in on it. So that's just something that's going to be happening in the future, in the 2022-23 push and beyond. But what you can do today is look for cell phone tower companies that do installs. So let's talk about cell phone towers. You know, I remember back in 2007 or 2008 when the iPhone came out, and oh my goodness, it is a revolution, and sure was. I remember when the 3G network came out, and that became the 4G network, then the LTE network, and 5G and 6G, and 2008, 928G, whatever the heck is going to come out next, right? Every time Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, anytime these carriers want to make their phones faster, they need to upgrade their cell phone towers. They need to make sure that the antennas are broadcasting in 5G or in 4G or LTE or whatever it is. So as new cell phones come on board, you need to be able to have the network, the infrastructure set up to support this. Every time they change technology, that means these towers are going to need to be upgraded, and things that could come out of them, the list is about 10 to 12 items deep. You have the helix wire, that black cable that runs up the side or inside. That's copper inside of it. That's something that you would be able to scrap. They have the solid core helix, which kind of acts as also a grounding rod, and also for some smaller cell phone towers. That's aluminum and copper. That's able to scrap. Some of the old antennas have gold circuit boards inside. They have aluminum inside. They have different pieces on them. Those you can scrap. Generally next to the cell phone towers, you see little buildings, 8 by 10, filled with lead acid batteries. Well, you know that those can only be charged for so long and recharged for so long. Those need to get scrapped. On top of that, you have normal stuff like copper grounding, steel structures. When they take the cell phone towers down, you have the old steel cell phone towers. And as things constantly get upgraded and these Verizons and AT&Ts of the world keep making better networks, and Apple and Google and Samsungs keep creating better phones, you're going to see the need for people to really hook up with some of these contractors and help them out with the scrap. Now, a lot of these contractors are smart and they know that their stuff is worth money and they scrap it on their own. But when they're really busy and they have a timeline or a crunch that they really need to do, maybe you can be their go-to guy to be able to show up, pull their material out, do some type of a profit split, and make more money that way. So it's important to think about where scrap will be created opposed to where it is today. And when you take a little more of a macro point of view and you try to look at the entire market and say, okay, all of these cell phone companies are talking about upgrading to whatever the next G network is, well, that means that they're going to be scrapping out and recycling some other material. So you might be able to start to work your way in with some of these crowds. And that's where things like Facebook and LinkedIn and just showing up at businesses could help you make more money. Now, we'd love to hear your ideas, your thoughts, your opinions, and what you want me to talk about here at Scrapulator so we can help you make more money with your scrap. Please make sure you follow all of our different podcasts through either Apple or Spotify. And until next time, I'll scrap you later.